Hello, happy Thursday. Thursday, 1 o'clock is when Marti Hampton hangs around here for a few minutes to talk about things of interest. A lot of times that's just got to do with real estate. Today, I'm going to talk about 5 books that have impacted my life. But first of all, I want to tell you about 3 Agent, which is what you're tuned into right now. It's free webinars with some of the top producers in the U.S., Kyle Whistle, Daniel Beard, Amy Wienans, myself. This is a place where you can come and learn how to get to the next level in real estate by people who have actually done that, as opposed to people who've just taught it. And I always think there's some value to that. But I want you to comment. I'd love to hear your comments. Today's a little different because it's not just about real estate, but a lot of things in my world are kind of sort of about real estate, even if they're not directly about real estate. And certainly reading is something that has been very dear to me. I was a reader early on, and I just think that it's a great way to enlarge your mind, to think about things you wouldn't think ordinarily. And there are, I just put down 5 books today, but there are so many books that have impacted me that I've learned a lot from. So I'll start talking to you about these books by going from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the first one I'm going to tell you about is a book that was written way back in 1946. And the book is called A Man's Search for Meaning. And this is a Viktor Frankl book, Viktor Frankl. And he was actually a survivor of the Holocaust. He was in the Holocaust. He survived it himself. He was both an Austrian psychologist, psychiatrist, and a neurologist. So it's a famous book. And as with a lot of the books that I'm going to talk about today, they're quite old. And you say, why not about these new books? And they're not all about business. They're about life and about how to look at life and how you can change your perspective. And so it's just this book is just a dramatic narrative about his observations of the Holocaust camps, which, as you know, was a terrible, terrible thing to go through. So the book explores the importance of meaning in life and the key to survival. And it just meant a lot to me when I read it. It was just the place that it took place, that he had to live through, and the things that he saw were incredible. But excuse me, my voice just went out. But with every good work, there's always a critic, and you'll find out that even Viktor Frankl had a critic. Some of the people that I think were probably jealous of him said he was supporting the Nazis, and of course he wasn't. But I loved this book, and I read it years ago. And believe it or not, the man who told me about this book was a real estate trainer. His name is the infamous Mike Ferry. And he mentioned this in one of his seminars, and I picked up the book right away and just marked the passages that spoke to me. And that's what I do with a lot of books that I read. And some books are so dear to me, I can't throw them away, or I can't give them away to somebody else. I just keep them. And this was one of those books. And when I went through it, go through a favorite book, actually, most of the books that I'll talk to you about today, is I go through them and I highlight them. And so then if I ever have a few minutes, I could just go through and flip through and see the places that I highlighted. And then it just reminds me of how much that book actually spoke to my heart. So I think it's a great book to read because it's about life. One of the aims of this book, it's funny that a book about the meaning of life would include a passage about success, which we're all about in real estate, So I'm going to read this passage to you. I picked out 3 passages that I thought were good. And one of them that Frankl wrote in his book, it says, don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you're going to miss it. That's kind of anti to what we're taught sometimes. the rest of this quote goes, for success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue, and only does so as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of another's surrender to a person other than oneself. It's a heavy quote. The other ones are shorter, but I just found it interesting that he had a quote about success. And of course, I guess success in a Holocaust Nazi camp is just making it through, just living through to the next day. And the second quote that I picked out of this book is, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And I've certainly seen that play out in some desperate situations where you would have thought somebody would have reacted one way, but they turned around and reacted a total different way. And another quote that I wrote out of that book is, those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. And that's what we're always selling in real estate. What is your why? What is your why? And when he was going through the concentration camp, he would notice people and everything. And some people, I remember one story about a man that had something that he had to give to his daughter, who was not in the concentration camp, but he was just living to see her again and deliver what it was that he thought was important. The last quote I'll give you on that is, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And that's an incredible power that we have. And actually, I was just listening to somebody else tell me about a very sad story, which I'm not going to fill your head with sad stories today. But this is just about, at the courage their father faced death and knew it was going to happen, but how he was actually being valiant to the very last minute. A lot of courage there. So I'm going to move on to my number four. Let me put it up here. Oh my gosh, this book, you wouldn't expect it to be in my top 5. This book is called Hope for the Flowers. This is a book that I read to my children when they were growing up. And it got so ragged that I think my daughter bought me another copy of it. And she said, you're in need, this book was in need of replenishment. And so she got me another book. And this is actually just a great little book to read as an adult, or as you're raising your children, your grandchildren. You want them to know about life. To me, it's just the epitome of what we do in life. It starts out with the characters. Character is Stripe. He's a caterpillar. And later on, you meet the heroine of this book, and her name is Yellow, and she is also a caterpillar. And they start out in life just eating everything. If you know anything about caterpillars, that's actually what they do. They begin to eat. They're born on a leaf. They eat one leaf, and then they eat another one. And then they go off. Stripe is by himself to begin with. And he, at some point, says, there's got to be more to life than just this eating. I don't know. I've got a couple of people that don't go beyond that. But so he said, this is getting dull. So he starts out in life to go, I imagine, for success. That's what people are starting out for in their 20s, this, that, and the other. And so all of a sudden he comes upon this big herd of caterpillars heading to some vast success mountain off in the distance. So he falls into line with the rest of the caterpillars. And don't we fall into line so many times? So he's going through that, and he finds a big mountain of caterpillars on the way up to this high place. I guess that would be success. And so he says, okay, well, that's something maybe I should go for, because everybody else is going for it. Everybody else is doing it. Have you heard that one before from your kids? And so on the way up, he actually meets Yellow, who's another caterpillar, who's also climbing this ladder of success for caterpillars. And somewhere on the way up, they get into a horrible accident, and they both come crashing down to the bottom. So Stripe says to Yellow, she's probably a little bit injured from this fall. Stripe says to Yellow, says, you stay here, you hunt, I'll go, you stay here, I'll go hunt. I'll go work on success, and then I'll come back and get you. You stay here, Yellow. So Stripe takes off for success again, and he's going up this mountain. And I just want to read you two of these things. They're so simple, but let me see if I can find a passage I wanted here. One of them is they're talking about Strife, and he says, on his way back up the mountain to success through the other caterpillars, he said he especially avoided meeting the eyes of the other crawlers. He knew that kind of contact could be fatal. So if you start to care too much, supposedly in this little story, that was fatal for him. And there's another passage I like. Now, Stripe didn't seem just disciplined to others. He seemed ruthless. Haven't you met a few people along their road to success that just seemed a little ruthless? Well, to make a long story short, you should really read this book. It's kind of cute, but it's so precious because it talks about Yellow is back there waiting on him to come down. She's actually feeling the sense that she needs to go another way. She needs to go another way. It's outside of the traditional path of stomping all over everybody to the top. Okay, so she does go another way, and she's very, conflicted about it because Stripe told her to wait here. This was the love of his life. She was the love of his life, and he was the love of her life. But anyway, she feels this draw to go another path. And so, of course, she goes into a cocoon. And so she's gone for a while. And Stripe actually comes back down to come and get Yellow, and she's not there. And it says at the end of the book, it says, somehow he just knew what to do. And I think about that. Somehow, don't you know what to do if you really are quiet in those moments of self-reflection? It's so hard to be quiet in this very distracted world that we live in. But those moments of solitude, those moments of reflection are so important. And it says somehow he knew what to do. And then Stripe actually climbed again. So after falling down many times, he climbed again, and it got very dark. It got very dark as he climbed up. And of course, he spun himself into a cocoon, and Yellow waited. And Yellow by this time had broken out of the cocoon, and she was a beautiful butterfly. And of course, at the end of this book, until one day, they were together. Stripe and Yellow were together. It's a fabulous way to look at life, a simplistic way. And it's a great tool to help your children learn what they need to learn about dealing with other people. It's awesome. This little book that meant so much to me. I probably read it so many times to my children. It's worth knowing about. So if you ever need a break from the rat race, and all business, especially real estate, sometimes can be a rat race. So listen, in the middle of the show, if you want to be a part of the drawing that I'm going to have for one of my 5 favorite books, I want you to text us, put your name in there. Huh? The comment in. Comment in. My God, tell me this. All right. Number three on my favorite books comes a book called Through Gates of Splendor by Elizabeth Elliot. And this book was written in 1957. So it's actually the biography of 5 American missionaries. Jim Elliot was one of those missionaries. And these were young men that were trying to bring the gospel to an untouched tribe in Ecuador. And all 5 of these missionaries were in their 20s. They were very young. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I know Jim Elliot was in his 20s. And all 5 of them were killed on the mission field, actually quite soon after they went into Ecuador. And I find this I've read a lot of biographies in my life. I've read a lot of stories about people who've done incredible things, but there was something about this Jim Elliot and his wife Elizabeth, who were both in their 20s. They met at Wheaton College, and they married. And I believe she was pregnant. I know she was pregnant before he got killed. And I just, it just touched my heart because it was such heroism, such courage, such passion. It was just an inspiration to me. And I know it would be an inspiration to you. So if you want to be inspired, I want you to just Google Jim Elliot and his quotes. They're going to be, you'll be enthralled. Some of my favorite quotes by him. I don't know where my clock is, but I'm missing it. Oh, there it is. I got it. I didn't want to talk past my time, but 3 of the quotes that I love to read about Jim Elliot. One of them said, "He is no fool who gives what he cannot gain to gain what he cannot lose. He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose." Now, that takes time to think about that. But this was a very idealistic, strong young man who had the courage of his convictions. And it's hard for me not to think about young people in their 20s who march off to war and do courageous things. So it's really, really important that you give this book a chance. This is a great book. Another one of Eliot's quotes is, "Lord, give me firmness without hardness, steadfastness without dogmatism, love without weakness." Firmness without hardness, steadfastness without dogmatism. I may not be pronouncing that right. Love without weakness. So love has to be strong for the times when it isn't strong, when it's not feeling good to be strong. You have to rise above your feelings in order to really love. And then 2 more I got to give you about Jim Elliot, but please go to Google and get this man's quotes because they'll rock your world. This has been used in business, but it was actually a quote attributed to Jim Elliot. And the quote is, "Wherever you are, be all there." And that's been used in business a lot because we're distracted. We live in a distracted environment. Everything is made to distract us. Messenger, Facebook, everything is made to distract us. Yet through the quietness of our soul and our heart, we find who we really are. So his last one I will give you, I like a lot. It says, Eliot said, "When it comes time to die, make sure that all you have to do is die." Yeah. Well, there's lots of things we think about in life. I'm going to do that before I die. I'm going to do that before I die. But doing it now and living in the present. And my last Jim Elliot quote, I said it was finished, but I'm not. And this has been used in business too. But I like this, and this is attributed to Jim Elliot. "It's hard to steer a parked car." I like that quote because in real estate is a business of action. Actually, life is a business of action. So having that movement, that momentum in life is really, really important. And of course, to do that well, you've got to take time to reflect. Now, I listened to Elizabeth Elliot. Elizabeth Elliot went on to marry again. Actually, I think she was married 3 times. Both of the other husbands died. And she died, I think, around 2015. But I listened to her radio show. And she would come on this show. And she was so humble and so gracious. And she would say, "This is your friend, Elizabeth Elliot." And she would just share things that she had learned through life. And she was an incredible inspiration to me. So now I'm down to my number 4. And number 4 should be no surprise. It is the ultimate book, business book called Think and Grow Rich. And Think and Grow Rich. I've thought a lot about this and why it's even on my list. And honestly, I think it's on my list, first of all, because I read it at a very early age. I read it in my 20s. And the kind of environment that I grew up in, I had not been exposed to positive thinking. I'm not even sure it was really a thing. But this book hit me right square between the eyes. And it could have been one of the reasons I went into real estate. I'm not totally sure about that, but I know I read it early in life, and I know it impacted me. And I know I read it again. And here's the thing. I want you to understand that these chapters gave me an education. This book gave me an education that I would have never gotten if I hadn't read this book. So I'm going to give you just some chapter names. Thoughts are things. And I went on to learn more about your thought life and how that really affected your life. This book talked about the level of desire that you have. It also talked about the faith that you have. It talked about auto-suggestion before I even knew it was a thing. Specialized knowledge, decision, and persistence. And those two things I've seen serve very successful people well. The power of mastermind, which is one of the principles EXP is founded on. It's got some racing titles here. The mystery of sex transmutation. I don't know. Maybe that's not the word. But it really what it means, don't hang up on me now. This really what it means is you take that natural desire that you have and you channel it into your endeavor. And that's what that means. And then the subconscious mind, it talks about the subconscious mind before too many people were talking about that. And then it ends up, this book, talking about the 6 ghosts of fears. And if you listen carefully, these are the 6 ghosts of fears. You're bound to have one of them. Maybe you got more than one. The ghost of the fear of poverty, the ghost of the fear of criticism. Isn't that all over social media now? The ghost of the fear of ill health, the ghost of the fear of loss of love of someone, the ghost of the fear of old age, the ghost of the fear of death. So just reading this makes me want to read this again. And I've read this book a lot, but you can never learn too much about the things that will put your life in the ditch, that will take them off track. And so I end up, my favorite 5 books. Oh, you probably knew I was going to do this. This is so controversial, but honestly, my favorite book is the Bible. And I didn't grow up in an environment where we went to church every single day. So I found the Bible when I was in my 20s, and it sells over 1 million copies every year. It's the book you call when you get married. It's the book you, when you're called to witness, you used to put your hand on it. I don't even know they do that anymore. It's the book you christen your children with. It's the book some people call when they're dying. So it's a very important book. Even if you're not a believer, this is the book you should read to know why you sign your date in January 2024. This book split the calendar. The events in this book split the calendar. 66 books together. Whether you believe it or not, I believe that it's an education within itself. And honestly, I believe you can be smart in a lot of areas, but this book will actually give you wisdom. And wisdom, to me, is even more important than education, although education is very important. I have a daughter that's a college professor, so I know how important education is. But I'm far from a scholar on reading the Bible. I have read it through several times, and I will tell you that I do not understand all of the Bible. But there's a few things that you can't help but understand if you read it and read it with an open mind. So my reading of the Bible is far from scholarly. But if I could tell you to start on one place, I'd probably tell you to start on the book of John in the New Testament. I'd probably tell you that other things I know about it is that Psalms are a way for you to get to know God. And the book of Proverbs is the way for you to learn how to get along with man. So those are two really important things. And of course, as my habit is, I did take notes throughout, and my Bible's all marked up. But I brought you 3 really short things from the Bible that I thought have impressed me over the year. They touched my heart. And one of them is Psalms 56, and it's very short. This I know, that God is for me. If there is a God, if there is a great creator that left us a message, and you read from his pages that he is for you, I think that would impact you. It certainly impacted me. And then the psalmist also says in 143:8, calls me to know the way wherein I should walk. Don't you always want to know you're walking the right way? Isn't there some time in your life where you say, goodness gracious, which way should I go? Give me some direction. The Bible's given many people direction. And then the last one I wrote for you is all things, talking about all things in the universe are your servants. And that means that there's absolutely no coincidences in God's world. Everything is there to serve him. And I could tell you some really, really unique things. Actually, one, I'll tell you this quickly and then I'll leave it. My grandson, I was sending him, finding out some things that were going on in his life and everything. And he was sick with something. So I sent him some medicine. And then I sent him this book, Think and Grow Rich. And he said, in his 20-something-year-old head, he said, man, I think all the forces of the universe are conspiring to get me into this book. I was just looking at this on YouTube. And I thought of this verse, that all things in the universe are your servants. There are no coincidences. So I know there's a lot of controversy, but I really believe that if you open your heart and read this book, that you'll have some fantastic growth of wisdom in your life. So now, just for any closing words you'd like to say, and then I'm going to let Dave give away our book.
Okay, everybody, we're going to start the drawing. I have everybody's names in a wheel. Let's get it set up here. Okay, can everybody see that? All right, so the winner will get a book of your choosing from one of those 5 that Marty covered today. We'll email you and figure out the shipping details and stuff. But yeah, here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, Vicky M. Vicky M wins the contest. Congratulations, Vicky. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, Vicky. Congratulations. Any closing comments? If not, 1 minute. I am going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for joining me today. I hope it was helpful. Just reach out if you need to talk to anybody about anything, especially real estate career. Take care. Bye-bye.